The SIU has confirmed that some politicians are indeed implicated in the private intelligence report that was commissioned by former Eskom Group CEO Ruyter. The officials are accused of corruption and organized crime at the power utility. The SIU appeared before SCOPA to give an update relating to the report. Newzroom Afrika's Athi Mtongana is in Parliament, and of course, Athi, the SIU does not want to reveal any names as yet. I guess it's going to be some time before South Africans know who those politicians are because of legalities.
Not only did the Standing Committee on Public Accounts not receive the names from the former Group CEO of Eskom, Ruyter, and also Sydney Mufamadi and the police when they came before the committee, but they also did not this afternoon receive names from the Special Investigating Unit, which has indeed confirmed that there are politicians that appear in that intelligence report on Eskom, which was unauthorized by the accounting authority, the board of Eskom, but commissioned by Mr. Ruyter. I'm joined by the SIU's head advocate, Mothibi. Thank you so much for making the time. You do confirm that there are names of politicians in there. Mr. Lees from the DA even went as far as pushing to ask you whether, for example, the former Deputy President, David Mabuza, is on that list. What bars you from naming these political individuals?
No, thank you, Athi, for the opportunity. And really it was a pleasure to brief SCOPA and, of course, the public in that sense. We did say there are names in the report, and there are various names mentioned at all levels. So the reason why we really cannot name those names at the moment is because the investigations are still ongoing, and there is a legal process that is required to be followed. If it's a criminal investigation and there's evidence pointing to any individual or any company for that matter, and there is a process that evidence has to be processed, whether the people need to be charged or not. An NPA comes in to make a decision, and the people get charged. And when they're charged, they would appear in court. It's only then that the names would be made public.
I think also interesting to what you're saying would then be linking what you're saying to the Hawks saying that, well, you do not have at this stage evidence to link these political figures to the allegations that have been made in that report. What are you working with now insofar as having received that report?
Right. We received the report, we went through it, and the report at this stage, really, as we said when we presented, that it provides us with information, and when it was commissioned as gathering intelligence, and that's the part with which we've got also a fundamental issue with, that there are state institutions that are authorized to gather intelligence. But anyway, to your question, we are working with information provided in that report, and we're sifting through it. We've said there are procurement matters that we are following up on. The Hawks have presented that there are matters that point to sabotage that they are also pursuing in line with some of the investigations that have been ongoing. So the fact is we've got the information. It's got to be investigated further so that it's either converted into evidence, legal, credible evidence, so that it can be processed either for criminal prosecution purposes or for civil litigation purposes in our case. But Athi, we made a point as well that this report, actually the way it was commissioned was unauthorized. Right? The former Group CEO of Eskom was not authorized to do this. He did this out of his own. He did not inform the board. He collaborated with private sector companies to raise funds and the funders, there's no one who's willing to disclose the funders, which in itself is fundamentally an issue for us. And that's why we are saying we really need to look at the legal framework so that this doesn't create a precedent that anyone, any CEO can now go out and get funding from non-disclosed funders, work with private sector companies to investigate state institutions. We believe that it's an undesirable precedent to set.
So are you going to take action against the former CEO?
We don't preclude that can be the possibility. We are going to consider what legal options are there, and we will look at the policies applicable at Eskom, any authority that was prevalent at the time. We will engage with the board, and we'll look and we'll take legal counsel in terms of the prejudice that could have been caused to Eskom. And yes, if there's a basis to take action, we will take action based on that.
Mr. Lees from the Democratic Alliance says it seems as though you're going for the messenger.
That question, I think, it really loses a point, so to speak. And again, in this regard, the assumption that we made, or that I made when I responded, was that the messenger is the group CEO. Let's assume the messenger is the group CEO. We are definitely not going against or pursuing the messenger in that sense, right? Because the question went further and said, it looks like, we're rigorously pursuing the messenger here. Are we pursuing CEOs of other state entities, right? So, and the point that we wish to make is that it could be any CEO, right? It could be the former CEO, Andre de Ruyter, or any other one in the same position. We would do the same, because we believe that any action taken, if you're a CEO of a state institution or a CEO of any corporate, there are rules and regulations. There's the rule of law that's applicable. You cannot go out and do your own things.
I want to ask you this question quickly. We had a conversation, a brief one, with the National Police Commissioner, who said some of the allegations in this report, there's nothing new, and that investigations had been ongoing, for example, citing the procurement of coal. Now, when you look at the evidence that you have collected so far as the Hawks and the SIU and the police collectively, with some of the evidence that you already have, and looking at now this report, which has named politicians, do you not have evidence that links any of those politicians to the evidence that you already have?
Look, I think the context of that response was that, if you look at the proclamation that authorized SIU to investigate, it dates back to 2018. I think even investigations that were done even prior to that, particularly around coal procurement, the quality of coal, those are in the investigations that have been ongoing. And the kind of the organized nature of the crimes and corruption that's conducted at SIU, that part has really been identified even before this report. I think the issue that really, and if you read the GCEO's book and how he has really sought to commission this, it was a question that he didn't have much confidence, that the law enforcement agencies would do, a march, and then he went to do the private investigation that he did. And the report comes out and points out to the same instances that we are investigating. I think that was the context. So we found the same. Of course, there are additional items or contracts that are mentioned that we are seeking to pursue. And that's why we are saying the unauthorized nature of the report will be dealt with separately, and the contents and the information of the report we cannot ignore. We cannot ignore, and we have to make sure that we look at it to ensure that all the areas that are pointed to are investigated appropriately and appropriate findings made based on evidence.
Advocate Andy Mothibi, thank you so much for making the time for us. The Special Investigating Unit Head briefing us about the work that they're going to embark on and the work that has already been done by law enforcement agencies insofar as the corruption that is embroiling the power utility